In this video, we'll explore JavaScript's math object, a built-in object packed with useful methods for mathematical operations. Unlike date, math is not a constructor. You use its methods directly. Let's start with some frequently used methods for basic calculation. These are perhaps the most common operation that one might want to use. Let me show you a code snippet and run it. So what you see here is you can calculate the absolute value, get a sign of a number, give it several arguments, comma separated, get the minimum or maximum. This is the power operation, so this means 2 to the power of 3, and then this gives you the square root of 16. Let's take a look at a bunch of rounding operations. So what round does is that it rounds it to the nearest integer. The floor will basically gives you the largest integer that is smaller than this value. The ceil operation will give you the smallest integer that is larger than this value. So in other words, this rounds it down and this one rounds it up. And truncate basically dumps the non-integer portion of the number. Doesn't matter what that value is. So positive numbers, floor and truncate will give you the same result, but for negative numbers, this is going to be different. Let me show you some examples of working with negative numbers. Let's run this. So if you've got a positive number and you round it up, you go to 8, but you give it a negative number and you round it up or use the ceil operator, you basically are going to go to -7 because -7 is greater than -7.004. So same story for floor operation. So floor with a positive number rounds it down. Floor with a negative number, it will like -5.05 will give you -6, and that's because -6 is less than -5.05. And so this sometimes surprises people, and that's why I'm putting it on your radar. Let's take a look at random number generations too. This can be helpful. So you have the random operation, and this is going to give you a random value between 0 and 1. So let's run this and take a look at the results. And sometimes you would want to scale that random value and map it to a different range. So this is how you do it. If you multiply it by some integer, then and then you can floor it, and what you get is going to be a value between 0 up to this integer, but excluding that integer. If you want it to be between 1 up to including this integer, then you add 1 at the end of it. All right, let's take a look at a few other operations as well. So logarithmic functions might be useful. So you've got the log, and a log is basically the natural logarithm. So if you're coming from engineering, you would probably represent this with ln rather than log. And if you want to get log base 10, which is what most people associate with simply the log, then you need to use log 10. Computer science students, they like base 2. So log 2 is log base 2, and this is also called binary log, and some resources represent this with LG. But anyways, speaking of logarithm, we do have the exponentiation function as well. And so this is going to give you the Euler number e based to the power of x, which is the inverse of this log function. So here's an example of running these values. Okay, and let's look at some useful constants as well. For example, you see here math.e. This is a small letter e constant, which is the Euler number. So let me show you a code example for it. I'll show this and a bunch of code example. You've got the good old pi and a square root of 2, if it's useful, rather than calculating it every time. So there's a constant for it. Keep in mind that these constants, I mean, as the name suggests, you can override them, right? You can change them. These are read-only constants. Okay, so There are a lot more methods and constants built into math, but I think that's enough for us to get us started with JavaScript. So what we covered was some of the common operations in the math object, and depending on what kind of program you're working on, some are going to be more helpful than others. I can anticipate that generating random numbers and working with various rounding functions are going to be fairly common in whatever application that you're building.